Sam, I don't have my mic on. No, there we go. Sam, I mean, Jake,
Yes, yeah, what's up?
do we have Eagle in the Zoom room?
Checking.
Commissioner
Currently,
Hess is in the Zoom room. There are 3 commissioners present. So there is a quorum to hold a meeting, but voting will have to be unanimous.
Copy that.
Thank you, Nicole.
I have a Sulwin Brown. That wouldn't be Eagle, would it?
It would.
Oh, yes, it would.
All right. Promote him.
Recording in progress.
So we are ready to proceed, Madam Chair, or, oh, I see Eagle. Okay, so we are ready to proceed whenever you are. Jake, and everything is clear on your end?
Thank you.
And Carrie,
We will call the July 22nd, 2021 meeting to order. I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll do consideration of approval of minutes from the July 8th, 2021 meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes from the July 8th, 2021 meeting.
Second?
Okay, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
motion so carried.
9:05 a.m. public hearing to consider major use permit, UP 20-11, applicant owner Pasty Farms LLC, proposed project four-phase development containing 11A type 3 medium outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation
Mr. Chair?
licenses. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
My apologies.
I think we skipped citizens' input.
okay. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go ahead and take any input from the citizens.
And just to be clear, it has to be something that is not on the agenda. It's just basic citizens' input. Did you still want to speak, or did you want to wait for a particular agenda item? I'm not sure. You can approach the mic. Are we dealing with the major use permit? So each item will have a section for public comment. Each item on the agenda. This is just citizens' input as a whole, anything that's not on the agenda. So if you have something in particular to talk about, like a particular agenda item, you can wait until that time.
Okay, maybe that's more appropriate.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. No one else in the Zoom room, Chair? Or sorry, in the chambers, I forget where I'm at. I don't know if you have anyone in the Zoom room.
I don't see any hands. Do we have any hands in the Zoom, Jake?
We do not have any hands raised in the Zoom room. If you would like to make a comment in the Zoom room, please raise your hands. If you have dialed in and are attending via phone, you should be able to dial *9 to raise your hand. I think it's
Okay, seeing no hands, we'll take up our 9:05 a.m. item.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Nicole. I wanted to address something before you take up the item, because your commission has a number of options in relation to this item. It is unfortunate that this application has been brought to you for decision in the form that it is in. However, how your commission continues will depend on how you view this application based on what information staff has provided to you and what they may provide to you today. So first and foremost, your commission may refuse to take up this item, which will allow staff to prepare a report that would provide an analysis for your commission to review, rather than a flat statement as presented in the report today that the findings cannot be made. So in that case, your commission would not take up the item today, would send it back to staff, so there would be no action on your part in that case. If you do choose to take up the item and consider it, you have a couple of options. If you do take it up, you can, as staff recommends, continue the item in an effort to give staff an effort to explain, well, you can give staff an effort to explain the severity of their error. You can ask them to elaborate on what information needs to be provided or corrected, if any, and how the analysis in the report will change due to that new information, and how long the continuance would be in order to achieve that goal. This would be keeping in mind that any new information may lead to a different and much more thorough environmental analysis, which may lead to an extended continuation period. Then, of course, you always have the option, after reviewing the material presented to you today for a decision, depending on the requested length of the continuance, the potential substance of the changes, your commission does also have the option to deny the permit as presented to you for a decision today. So those are the options before you in relation to this item. And I wanted to tell you before you got to the item, because one of those options is not taking up the item at all.
Nicole, this is Commissioner Hess.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
what's the difference between not taking up the item at all or continuing in terms of process?
In terms of process, if you don't take up the item at all, it doesn't, it doesn't trigger any rules that would apply to notice for a continuance. What it would be the item just essentially would never have come in front of you at all. And when it's agendized again, it would be as if it's a new agendized item.
Addressing the particular items of concern.
Well, the point is if you don't take up the item, you cannot express what concerns you have. You simply don't take the item.
Got it. Thank you.
Right.
So that being said, how are the commissioners feeling about taking on the item or continuing it?
Well, do we have to go through the process of reading the information that's on
No.
the agenda?
No.
Okay.
No, if you do not take the item, you would simply reject the item out of hand. You would not be taking up item number 1. You would not be having a discussion. You would not be considering anything that was presented to you. You would not be sharing your opinions or your views on the material that's presented to you. There would be no discussion, no deliberation. And then staff would go back and address the issues that staff has with the report. As the report is written to you, it does say that it's flat out that there are findings that cannot be made. If you accept that assessment, then you cannot approve the application. I'm not saying you have to accept that assessment. There may be evidence presented to you today. The discussion that you have as a commission today may lead to a different conclusion on your part, depending on the evidence you received and how you've analyzed it yourselves. But if you do accept what staff has presented to you today, and it's unfortunate it was presented to you in this way, if you do accept this assessment from staff, then you cannot make the findings that you must make in order to approve the application. You could, if you do deliberate and you find that there is missing information that you think needs to be clarified or provided, you could continue it as staff recommends. If you do that, please keep in mind that any information that is provided later through staff's work during the continuation may affect the analysis that comes up later. So if you do go in that route, it may be prudent to ask staff to elaborate on how long they think a continuation may be and what exactly the continuation should be addressing and how that might impact the analysis going forward, because it may.
Eric, quick question. Do you recommend just not taking the item to be able to give staff more time to find the findings that we need?
Well, I'm not sure I can give you a recommendation on it. It has. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. I'm not sure I can give you a recommendation on it. It can't be approved. There was a dispute about the water source that came to light about a week ago. And so we had to scramble to change the recommendation from approval based on a very thorough review to a continuation because of the disputed water source. Without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, it has to be continued. My suggestion would be to continue it to a date uncertain because we're not sure how the water situation is going to be resolved or when it would be resolved. There's also substantial public opposition to it for different reasons, but again, I don't want to get too far into the details of the case if you're not going to hear it.
Commissioners, if I may, just to be clear, the item does not have to be continued. Your decision will be based on your analysis. If you do take up the item and you determine based on your analysis, based on the evidence presented to you today by staff, public commenters, and other information that has been presented to you, either through material submitted in papers and things, if you've determined that a continuation is appropriate, then you may determine based on your analysis or your weighting of the evidence, you may continue it. If you've determined that you have enough information in front of you that staff has provided in the report, and you, after deciding to take up the item, and you've determined that staff's assessment is correct, that the item cannot be approved because the information presented does not allow you to make the findings that you need to make, then you may deny the application. But you also may, without analysis, without considering anything in the project, refuse to take up the item. But none of those is a mandatory decision for your commission.
And that's where I still have a question, Nicole. I understood what you said in terms of a continuance and how additional staff scrutiny could result in triggering additional studies, et cetera. And by not taking it up at all, would that not potentially generate additional study, et cetera?
I can't speak to the substance of the actual project and the analysis. That would be a question for staff. However, if you refuse to take up the item and it goes back to staff, then they would have to make the item, they would have to reassess the item in order to make it, provide you with an analysis that you can review and that you can interpret and that you can weigh in on and form a decision about. So yes, arguably, that would could potentially, depending on the information that staff is anticipating receiving, lead to further environmental analysis.
Right.
However, I think that it's relevant for you to know how long staff anticipates for a continuance, what the analysis should involve in order to make an informed decision as to whether or not it would be prudent for you to accept or to vote a continuance or to vote to deny the application based on the evidence in front of you. And then in that case, the applicant would have to reapply.
Personally, I feel like I'm leaning more towards not taking the application at all and just moving on to the next item.
Like refusing it and then letting staff go ahead and do a full-on overhaul and redo it instead of
It would
opening.
simply, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Go ahead, Nicole.
You would simply just not take up the item. You wouldn't
Right.
read it,
Right.
and you would move on. And then if staff were to bring it back to you, the same standard would apply as would any project being brought back to you. They would have to present you with a report that contains an analysis of all of the facts and circumstances for this particular project in such a way that you can make an informed decision and make the findings that your commission is required to make. But in this case, if you don't take it up at all, there would be no discussion.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner.
I am also in agreement that I would rather refuse the item at this time.
I concur with that.
I agree. So there is a consensus. So do we need to just do
Move
all
on.
in favor?
We'll just move on.
Correct. There would be no action to take here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take up the 9:10 a.m. item, public hearing to consider parcel map PM 20-23 to divide a 406.69 acre property to create 3 new parcels. Applicant owner, Langtree Farms LP, location 21700 and 22000 Butts Canyon Road, Middletown, California, APNs 014-310-08, 014-320-06, and 014-330-08.
Commissioners, if I may. Mr.
Please.
Chair. The item today, my understanding, is a general plan amendment. Is that correct, Eric?
No, it's parcel
Okay.
map.
It's simply a parcel map. Okay, I just had comments if it were a general plan amendment, but it is not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to need some assistance up here from Sam. I can't see the prompts in order to get the PowerPoint set up. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I just got out of the, should be the second one from the bottom. No, that's not it.
Nope, over more to the right. The other,
That's not the right
The other right.
PowerPoint.
This isn't the right PowerPoint?
No,
Oh,
that's for the one they just,
the other one, okay.
yeah, it's Langtree is the file. See the bottom right, the two on the bottom right, those are the PowerPoints.
Oh, wait, that's not PowerPoint.
No, the column, column 3. Can I see the mouse for a minute?
Sure.
Sorry, Sam.
What are you looking for?
Oh, we can't see it. It may be that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, well then just go ahead and double click it.
I don't know if that's Langtree or Pasta.
That's the other, that's the one
That's
you
the wrong
just
one,
had.
yeah.
Okay. Then we'll
It's
just
the one right below it.
there you go.
go.
Great, thank you.
Over, there you go. One, a little bit more. To the right. There you go.
Is that? Oh,
Yep.
oh, start from the beginning, F5.
F5.
Thanks, Sam.
Sorry, I'll turn the
No, you're fine.
Eric, before you start.
Yeah.
If I could have everybody take their seats or leave chambers so we can move forward with this next presentation. Thank you.
Oh, real quick, we need to make sure to share that presentation to Zoom too.
Thank you, Jake. We'll get that situated. I think it's just the share screen.
Yeah, no, we have to come back. Escape. And it's which one?
Langtree?
Look on the left.
This
On that
pasta?
column?
Oh, Langtree, got it.
There you go.
There you go, okay.
Thanks, Sam.
Awesome.
Hold on. And then back to,
Play.
F5.
yes, F5.
That's it.
Awesome.
Oops,
Almost.
F5's not working. Okay, we'll try it this way. Now it's working. Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the public that have taken time out of your busy schedules to attend. This is a parcel map, file number PM 20-23, submitted by Langtree Farms, also known as Gwinock Winery. Amanda Bradshaw is the primary point of contact for this. They've got 3 parcels that they wanted to divide. Parcels X, Y, and Z would be created by this action. They currently have 3, but the properties would be reconfigured. The parent site is 406 acres in size. It's zoned Ag, Waterway, Floodway Fringe, and Scenic Combining District. General plan designation is Ag and Resource Conservation. Parcel X would contain the dwelling that exists on the property. Parcels Y and Z would be undeveloped in terms of new structures. There is no development proposed with this parcel map. This is strictly the division of land. A portion of the property is within a mapped floodplain for Bucksnort Creek, and no new development is proposed with this land division. The properties are a little hard to see because of the scale of the properties. Again, it's 406 total acres, and so it's a little hard to capture it in one zoning map, but you can see the area to the upper right, which is zoned,
RR.
I believe that's RR,
Yeah.
rural residential, and the remainder of the property is zoned Ag. No zone change is proposed. This is strictly the division of property. Aerial photo, it's fairly flat, fertile soil. This is in the Middletown area. It has nearby adjacent Ag uses on large lots, very sparse population. The parcel map, I cannot see the individual parcel numbers. One is X, one is Y, and one is Z. And they range in size from 60 to over 100 acres as proposed. We have to meet conformance with various regulations and plans. So we compared it up against the general plan for Lake County, and we found that it complied with all the applicable policies that were within the general plan related to land divisions. We looked at the Middletown area plan for compliance. There were no conflicts that were observed with the Middletown area plan. And we looked at the zoning ordinance, Article 6 in particular, which is the Ag zoning district. I don't have it up there, but we also looked at the rural residential section for the portion zoned RR, which is rural residential. We looked at Article 34, which is the scenic combining district, Article 36, which is the floodway fringe, and Article 37, which is the waterway section. There were no conflicts that were in any of those portions of the zoning ordinance. Subdivision ordinance, we had to evaluate it for compliance. That's Chapter 17 of the county code. And we were able to make findings that it did in fact comply with all of the regulations that are found within the subdivision ordinance for Lake County. So the specifics for Article or Chapter 17 of the county code, which is the subdivision ordinance, are broken down into elements. The first one being the tentative map, the second one being statements that are required of the professional land surveyor, and they have met those. Any dedications that are required would be found in Section 17-22. Creation of lots is described in Section 17-23. Any easements that are required are found in Section 17.24. Any park and rec facilities or fees that need to be paid in conjunction with the land division are found in 17.27A. And I did get a comment back from the Director of Public Services, who's in charge of county parks, indicating that Quimby fees do not apply to non-residential development or land divisions. And then finally, 17.20, Quimby fees are fees that are paid to support the county parks. Section 17.28, improvements, lists any kind of improvements that might be needed in conjunction with the land division. We did a CEQA analysis because there was no development proposed and because the site has been significantly disturbed over the past several decades with a vineyard and winery. We found that this project is categorically exempt from CEQA per section 15300 sub 2B. Our recommendation is for the approval of parcel map PM 20-23 and for the adoption of a categorical exemption to CEQA. And that concludes my presentation unless there are any questions for this one. And I do need to indicate that we have had a handout presented to me at the start of the hearing from the professional land surveyor. He's requesting a change to one of the conditions. Specifically, it's condition C2, which affects air quality. And subsection 2 says, in your conditions, what staff wrote is vegetative waste shall be composted and chipped for erosion control. Burning is prohibited. They're requesting adding the sentence, unless conducted for agricultural purposes pursuant to a Lake County Air Quality Management District burn permit. Staff has no objections to that change to condition number C2.
Eric, this is Commissioner Hess. And just to clarify, this has nothing to do with the Gwinnett property that sort of surrounds all of these parcels, correct?
He says that's correct. He's passing stuff around. He says that's correct,
Oh,
Commissioner
sorry,
Hess.
thank you.
You're okay.
Do you have any other questions for Eric?
Not at this time.
No questions.
Okay, we'll open it up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak, please state your first and last name.
Mr. Chair, I do have someone approaching the podium.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission members. My name is John Webb. I prepared the application before you today, and I'm here representing the owners of the property. And also with me via Zoom is their counsel, Tom Adams, if we need any information from him or have any questions. I was here this week earlier for a board meeting, and Eric was here, and I just want to thank Eric for all his efforts. I know he's a very busy man in the planning department, so I appreciate him putting this together. This property is a 400-acre vineyard parcel. There's one house on it, no really other improvements besides ag buildings and reservoirs. There's no development proposed at this time, and this subdivision, it's parcel map, it's approximately 400 acres. We'll be creating 3 parcels, approximately 70 acres, 107 acres, and 230 acres. We are in concurrence with the condition of approval, with exception to the minor change that we submitted to Eric this morning. And at this point, because I think this is a pretty simple application, I have no other comments. But if anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, John.
I was just going to simply say I don't have any questions. This strikes me as a pretty straightforward action.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just for the record, perhaps staff, you might want to ask staff to clarify how the last minute change to the mitigation will impact the CEQA analysis and whether or not it was addressed in the CEQA analysis.
Eric, did the mitigation measures want to see if there's any impact to the CEQA analysis in favor or?
Well, nothing would change in terms of what they're allowed to do. They've been allowed to burn vegetative waste that's none of it's cannabis related through the air quality district through a burn permit. We do have 2 conditions of approval under subsection C, air quality, that apply to dust control and vegetative waste. Prohibited burning with the exception that the applicant has proposed this morning.
So there has been burning there in the past?
I don't know. I can only assume so through a burn permit.
Right. I believe I've seen smoke from a burn in that area over the years. I'm just wondering if that would be considered an existing use like previously disturbed.
Just a moment. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Is there anybody else in the chambers?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, that was during public comment. I apologize.
We do have a little bit of a response. Just be sure to state your first and last name again, please.
Yes, thank you. John Webb again. Yes, they've burned using the standard Lee County burn permit process for many, many, many years. So it's an existing process that they use, and they just would like to continue with it since it is allowed.
Thanks for that.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe there's anyone else in chambers that would like to speak. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the Zoom room for public comment.
Do we have any hands, Jake, in the Zoom room?
Yes, we have one hand come up in the Zoom room. I have a hand up from Thomas Adams. I have allowed you to speak. Looks like you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners and staff. My name is Tom Adams. I'm a representative of the applicant, Langtree Farms. And I just wanted to clarify and repeat what John Webb said, is that this is an existing condition. This is an ag property that will remain in ag. It's pretty much fully developed to ag if you look at the aerial photographs. And what we're requesting is consistent with your ordinance, chapter 22 specifically, that deals with burning regulations. So we're just asking to continue to do what we've been doing in the past pursuant to your existing ordinances and the Lake County Air Quality Control District. And that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to commission.
Mr. Chair, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. I don't have any questions.
No questions.
And Mr. Chair, barring any further questions or comments, I'm prepared to offer a motion.
Okay.
Thank you. I move that the Planning Commission find, on the basis of the environmental review undertaken by the Planning Division and no mitigation measures were added to the project. I don't understand that. That the parcel map PM 20-23 as applied for by Langtree Farms LP on property located at 21700 Butts Canyon Road, Middletown, APN 014-310-08, 21200 Butts Canyon Road, Middletown, APN 014-320-06, and 22300 Gwinnett Valley Road, Middletown, APN 014-330-08, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore recommend that the Planning Commission approve the proposed categorical exemption using SEQA section 15300-2 subsection B, with the findings listed in the staff report dated July 22, 2021, and as amended today.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hess,
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
motion so carried.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission find that the tentative parcel map PM 20-23 as applied for by Langtree Farms LP on property located at 21700 Butts Canyon Road, Middletown, APN 014-310-08, 21200 Butts Canyon Road, Middletown, APN 014-320-06, and 22300 Gwinnett Valley Road, Middletown, APN 014-330-08, is in conformity with the provisions of the Subdivision Map Act and Chapter 17 of the Lake County Code and the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and upon that basis approve said map subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated July 22, 2021, and as amended today.
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hess,
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
motion so carried.
We'd like to note the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the subdivision ordinance provides for a 15 calendar day appeal period. If there's a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 15th calendar day following the Commission's final determination.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
I would like to request a brief 5-minute break before we get on this next item, if at all possible.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, we are ready to continue. We just had a little technical difficulty with the PowerPoint presentations.
Okay, thank you. Is everybody back?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and take up our 9:15 a.m. item. Continuation of item, the July 8th, 2021 Planning Commission hearing. Public hearing to consider approving use permit, UP 21-10, applicant owner, Sowers HVR Inc., Aviona LLC. The commercial cannabis cultivation operation will be composed of 80 A-type 3 outdoor cultivation, 1 type 11 distributor, and 1 A-type 4 nursery license with a total combined canopy area of 3,485,000 square feet. The proposed project includes 11 buildings totaling 110,000 square feet for storage and drying of cannabis. Location 11650 High Valley Road, Clear Lake, California, 95423. Property consisting of 1,639.96 acres. APN 006-004-07, 006-004-25, 006-004-24, 006-004-06, 006-002-04, 006-002-09, and 006-009-36. Captain Schaefer's, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Today I'll be reading the staff report addendum. So the addendum summary is what I'll be reading off the staff report. File number UP 2110 went before the Planning Commission on July 8th, 2021. The hearing was continued to July 22, 2021 today to give the applicant an opportunity to provide the requested information in regards to biological resource floristic surveys, cultural resources, traffic and hydrology, and Cdfw Lake County grading ordinance violations. Below is a brief summary of the applicant's response. Full information may be found in attachments 8 through 10. Okay, first item, biological resource floristic surveys. For the full information, please refer to attachment 6. Sequoia Ecological Consulting Incorporated performed the initial biological survey on September 28th, 29th, 2020. Based on past agricultural practices and the lack of suitable habitat present during the site visit, the biologists determined that special status plant species are not expected to occur within the area of potential impact. Figure 9 on page 28 of the biological assessment shows that the area of impact will occur in agricultural habitat. When agricultural land has been heavily impacted by practices such as disking, tilling, or farming, the potential for special status species to be present is low. Follow-up faunal surveys were performed, and mitigation measures had been correspondingly included in the environmental review and the conditions of approval, as was presented during the July 8th Planning Commission meeting. Second item, cultural resources survey area. Please refer to attachment 8 for full details. The survey area included all areas in which cultivation and cultivation-related activities would occur. No disturbance or project improvements occurred or are proposed for areas beyond the boundaries of the area surveyed. In other words, the survey area fully encompasses all areas that would be used by the proposed project. The survey areas also encompassed areas outside of locations proposed for disturbance. On July 15, 2020, a letter was sent out to the Native American Heritage Commission regarding the project. An associated record search was performed and comment sought from any interested tribal parties. Furthermore, in December of 2020, as part of the Cultural Resources Survey, all 11 tribes in Lake County were notified of the project per AB 52 and no comments received. For the staff perspective, on March 16th, the AB 52 notice went out without a response from the tribe. Another response was requested via telephone. The number at that point was disconnected. Another response was solicited by the county on July 9th, both by email, and then 2 numbers were also attempted to be contacted. Both were also disconnected. Our efforts to these attempted responses did not bear any fruit. The Cultural Resources Evaluation did identify a previously located resource area. This site is outside of all areas proposed for cultivation and improvements and would not be disturbed as part of the project. In addition, there were isolated artifacts and historic features located, but these were not part of a larger deposit of cultural material. These features also did not meet any of the criteria to be considered significant historic resources as defined in the Public Resources Code. The Cultural Resources Report provided the recommendations that were included in mitigation measures CR1 and CR2 in the initial study. In addition, as part of the staff report for the project, a condition of approval was included that requires employee training. So you can find this condition of approval in the attachments, but it reads, all employees shall be trained in recognizing potentially significant artifacts that may be discovered during ground disturbance. If any artifacts or remains are to be found, the culturally affiliated tribe shall be immediately notified. A licensed archaeologist shall be notified, and the Lake County Community Development Director shall be notified on such fines. This is the second mitigation measure. Though the incorporation of the listed mitigation and conditions of approval, impacts to unknown cultural resources were disclosed in the initial study mitigated negative declaration for the project and would be less than significant. In addition, the applicant has not performed any work outside of the previously surveyed 290 acres, where some of the clearing of previous pasture land did occur outside the proposed cultivation area. These locations were within the 290-acre survey area. Lastly, all future work for the proposed drying and storage structures require verification of flagging and work area boundaries by county staff prior to any ground disturbance. These activities, along with the presence of identified cultural resource monitors and employee education, would ensure all future ground disturbance would be located within the boundaries of the project as proposed, and that if any resources are located, they are properly treated in accordance with county policy and state law. Third item, traffic. For full details, please refer to Attachment 9. The proposed project would not result in an addition to the historic use of High Valley Road in terms of vehicle trips or safety hazards. As detailed in the traffic memorandum, Attachment 9, the proposed project will reduce the total volume of vehicles and reduce the overall VMT. This would have a corresponding effect of reducing the potential for vehicle collisions or other related hazards. Based off of CHP records, there have been no recorded vehicle accidents along High Valley Road from Highway 20 to the project site since June 1st of 2019. Because the project would further reduce vehicle trips along this segment in relation to the previous usage, the project would not result in any additional safety impacts along the highway or the roadway. The roadway includes signage indicating upcoming curves and turns with allowable speeds to help ensure safe operation of vehicles on the roadway. These conclusions are consistent with the information requested by the Planning Commission hearing on July 8th, 2021. The next item, hydrology. This one's a little bit more lengthy. If you'd like to see the full report, Attachment 10 is the resource. This is also the water report that was omitted last time for your review from the July 8th meeting. The Soares High Valley Ranch site is underlain by two prolific aquifers, the Quaternary Alluvium and the Holocene Volcanics. The aquifers have a total thickness of approximately 140 feet. The limits of the groundwater basin are constrained by topography and geology. As such, the potential effects of groundwater withdrawal are not expected to propagate outside of the cumulative area of impact. As I read these 11 findings, I just want to make a collective statement. The applicant here is arguing that there are two different deposits of water, two different basins. One basin is shallower, I believe that is the Quaternary Alluvium. The other one is the deeper Holocene Volcanics. As the applicant is drawing from the deeper reservoir, this is the water usage that they are proposing to use. So just wanted to clarify that before I go through this list here. A groundwater evaluation performed for the High Valley area by EBA Engineering concluded that the aquifers have a combined storage capacity of approximately 27,799 acre-feet. That's both the Quaternary Alluvium and the Holocene Volcanics. Both of those aquifers serve High Valley. One is shallower, one is deeper. Previous investigations have demonstrated that the groundwater recharged the valley to be approximately 2,321 acre-feet. At one time, up to 6 irrigation wells service the properties that constitute the sour site. The historic wells had the capacity to produce groundwater in excess of the projected water use demands for the project, Thus, the aquifers have historically been able to sustain water use demands equal to or greater than the proposed demand for the Sowers project. The current and future water use demands for the cumulative area of impact constitute approximately 1.4% of the available groundwater. The proposed groundwater withdrawals associated with the project are approximately 353.86 acre-feet. The existing and proposed groundwater withdrawals constitute approximately 2.6% of the available groundwater within the cumulative area of impact. The proposed groundwater withdrawals do not exceed the amount of groundwater recharge available in any given year. As such, the proposed groundwater use is reasonable. The multiple irrigation wells proposed for the project will minimize the localized effects of drawdown within the aquifer. The localized drawdown in the aquifer will be less than 4 inches. The closest off-site well to the existing or proposed wells for the project is 580 feet. You can find this list in the applicant's water use attachment. Full details are provided directly before this list in the pages that precede. Okay, next point is the Cdfw Lake County Grading Ordinance Violations and Remediation. So you have a green sheet in front of you. Over the last 2 weeks, the applicants have worked with both the Cdfw and the Community Development Department in remediating the grading violations. With the Cdfw, that included obtaining an LSA, which is an agreement between the Cdfw and the applicant for activities on the project. For the Lake County grading ordinance, the applicant now has a permit stamped with us. They paid their fees, and they've also remediated the activities on the site. The County of Lake, including myself and our resource planner, went out to the site last week along with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and Cal Cannabis. We were taken around a tour of the site to see how the activities were being remediated with straw wattles, moving everything back from the creek beds, and also making sure that the flow of the waterways, the stormwater drainage, would be appropriate to the site and that we wouldn't have any runoff. So we saw, not just us, the county, but the Cdfw, the remediation efforts. So that is the summary there of the grading violations. Okay. The staff report was written before this this site visit, so I'll just read this here, but just note that those activities took place last week. For proof of Lake County grading ordinance violation correction, the notice of violation shall be addressed by submission of a grading permit application and payment of $1,600.40 payable to the County of Lake. For proof of Cdfw violation correction, engineered and stamped plans showing needed alterations have been submitted to the Lake County Resource Planner. I do have those plans with me. They are about this thick in a stack. So if you'd like to see those, commissioners, I have brought them today, but I thought they might be a little lengthy for a green sheet. If alterations of these violation corrections trigger additional grading requirements with the County of Lake, for example, routing the stormwater runoff out and away from the cultivation area, these shall also be noted and addressed in both the engineered site plan and on the grading permit application. Any associated fees with the additional grading permit requirements shall also have been paid. So as of the writing this memo, so far Sowers HVR had demonstrated implementation of erosion control methods via soil compaction and insertion of straw wattle around the identified water courses. As of this point, they have also paid the fee of $1,640 and submitted their grading application, which has been accepted and stamped, as you can see in front of you. The engineered and stamped plans showing the alterations have also been submitted to the department. And the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, they also have their LSA, and the same requirements have been met with them. The notice of violation from the Cdfw may lead to the development of the reconveyance of runoff waters, which will likely trigger the need for a Lake County grading permit, which can be issued after UP 2110 is approved. Due to the Lake County grading violations remediation prior to the Planning Commission hearing, the applicant no longer has outstanding violations with the county. Staff is recommending approval of a major use permit and the adoption of a mitigated negative declaration based on the environmental analysis, the initial study, IS 2110, with the incorporated mitigation measures and conditions of approval. Do note that the conditions of approval have been changed from last time. Also with the conditions of approval, there are a few dates on there that if this permit is approved today, that they will be changed to reflect today's date. Okay, there was a number of public commentaries that were received over the weekend, and I would ask that if you need any further clarification on the submission of the applicant provided materials or response to public comments, I would request the applicant's team be the ones to answer those. If there's any questions for me, I'm happy to take them now.
Sure. One quick question from the report that we were presented at the last meeting. On this one, it says that they are proposing a well 50 feet from the nursery. Was that originally in the first packet?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no questions at this time.
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, before we continue, I have a few questions. I want to disclose that on July 15th, I went out and did a site visit and took a good look at the project area. So I want to disclose that before I ask any questions after public comments. Okay, with no questions from the commission at this time, we'll open it up to public comments. Please state your first and last name if you wish to comment.
Mr. Chair, did you want to start with anybody who's in chambers, or do you want to start with the Zoom room?
Let's go ahead to chambers first.
Anyone in here that would like to speak on this item? We do have the applicant who wishes to speak, so we can start with that if you'd like.
Yes, that's fine.
So I have a PowerPoint presentation.
Be sure to state your first and last
Yeah,
name.
sorry, Tom Armstrong. I have a PowerPoint presentation, which was just received, uploaded. If I can present that, that would be great.
Just a moment while we get this all situated.
This one out.
Switch slides with the... It's the bottom right. There it is. Yep, that's it. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Armstrong. I'm a member of the Sowers HVR Aviana LLC team. I want to thank you all first for being here and taking the time to hear our project. After the July 8th meeting, we heard your concerns, and we've tried to address them as best as possible. And without further ado, I'd like to present some information on how we've done so. If I can get the PowerPoint to work here. Is your mouse working? The mouse is, yes. Gotcha. So we identified, after the last meeting, the following issues had been identified. Environmental and land use issues, including traffic and roads, as well as property access points, distance and effects on the local school, the Cdfw and Lake County grading ordinance violations, localized hydrology, as well as the effect on neighboring wells and our water conservation measures, cultural resources, air quality, including odor control and dust, and biological resources. The first issue is the traffic and associated road use, and as that relates to vehicle trips, One thing we want to point out is that our normal operational activities only require 10 to 15 people, with a maximum of 60 employees during peak season. Our peak season, and by peak season, that's our planting and that's our harvesting, which typically would be a couple weeks of the year at each of those given points in time. Most of our employees, I'd also like to point out, live on site in permitted employee housing. And our operational traffic generally consists of passenger vehicles with occasional deliveries of materials and supplies. As that compares to the previous use, in 2008 and 2019, or 2018 I should say, and 2019, there was an average of 60 and 69 trips per day, respectively, for PSI seminars, the previous owner of the property. Mind you, they used both passenger vehicles and large school buses to transport some of their seminar members to the project site. They routinely would have seminars in excess of 100 people and employees in excess of 20 to 30 people, depending on the given time of the year and whether or not there was seminars. As I say, none of those people lived on site, whereas a vast majority of our people live on site. As it relates to road conditions and our use of the road, High Valley Road routinely supports tractor, trailer traffic, buses, and delivery vehicles, including UPS and FedEx, aside from the proposed project. All roads within the project site are 4290 compliant and paved. As Catherine had mentioned before, the California Highway Patrol does not have a record of a vehicle collision since July 2019, and that was as far back in the records as they looked. The other point I'd like to make is that High Valley Road was partially repaved recently, and work is continuing to go on. Our neighboring property owner, Brassfield Estates Winery, has been paying 10 cents per case of wine for the last 10 years, specifically for the purpose of road improvements. Additionally, we've also reached out and been proactive in reaching out to the county and community development in an effort to try to work with them and pay for some road improvement projects, specifically some concerns that were addressed last time with the hairpin turn and some of the other areas along the road. And lastly, it was mentioned last time about how our first entrance is in close proximity to some of the neighbors. As such, we've completely closed off that entrance point. It's closed off, the electronic gate is unhooked, and it's no longer accessible by employees or delivery people. As such, all of the entrances to and from the property go through the second gate, which is well over a quarter mile from any other neighbor with the exception of Brassfield Estate Winery. Another issue that was brought up was the impact of the project on the school and the distance from the school. I'd like to point out that the school is 2.5 miles down the road from where we're located, and as you can see up here, that's a 5-minute drive and a 54-minute walk. I'd also like to point out the fact that Eastlake School is in session from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Our employees generally work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. As I said, the vast majority of them live on site. However, the few that would come to the site on a regular basis and that do not live there would obviously be coming well before school is in session and leaving well after school has let out. Furthermore, our most intensive season is the summer, when the school is typically not in session. As it relates to the grading and the Cdfw violation, I'd like to give a little overview of the situation that occurred here. As we've been working on this project for nearly a year, we had a biologist come out, they did a survey, we prepared plans based on the recommendations there. We made sure that we did everything as kosher as possible, made sure that everything adhered to the biological recommendations that were given to us and everything we knew to be true. We submitted these plans to Cdfw. They had multiple desktop reviews. They also came out to the site and did a site visit prior to the issuance of the first lake and stream bed alteration agreement. They okayed that lake and stream bed alteration agreement after their site visit and after multiple desktop reviews. Once we were issued our early activation, we started doing work with the land in terms of disking and raking and things of that nature, preparing the land for planting. There was a complaint that was received by Cdfw from a neighbor. Cdfw proceeded to come out to the site. At that point, they identified some potential areas that may be tributaries to potential waterways. As such, they instructed us to hire an engineer and work with the engineer as well as their conservation engineers to figure out ways to remedy the problem. Immediately, we installed straw wattle and compacted the soil per their recommendations. We used a water truck to make sure that we kept any sediment from blowing and any dust as best as possible. As Catherine stated, I forget the exact date to be specific, but I believe it was July 14th. We had a meeting with Cdfw, the biologists, Senior Environmental Scientist Supervisor Kirsten Sheridan, who's the signatory on the Lake and Streambed Alteration Agreement, as well as the conservation engineers from Cdfw, as well as our hired engineer, as well as county officials and Cal Cannabis. During that time, we, as Catherine alluded to, we did an extensive site visit that was over 3 hours long. We reviewed every portion of the site. Our engineers spoke in detail with the conservation engineers. We all went around, figured out ways to remedy the issues. Following that site visit, our engineer developed plans. Those plans were submitted to Cdfw, their conservation engineers, their biologists. Those plans were subsequently approved, and a new lake and streambed alteration agreement was then issued. I'd also like to point out that in this statement that was issued by Cdfw, and mind you, this was prior to the previous meeting, so this doesn't even include the fact that we were already issued, that we've now been issued the new lake and streambed alteration agreement. We've also now been cleared the violations, but at this time they had stated we do not have any objection, I can't really read it with that little thing in the corner, but we do not have any objection to the project, and furthermore, they look forward to working with Tom and the team on future cultivation projects. And that was a statement that was authored by the senior environmental scientist who's done multiple site visits to the project site, and he's also the signatory on the lake and streambed alteration agreement. Localized hydrology and water usage and its effect on the wells. Obviously, Catherine touched on a bunch of these points, but just to reiterate, you know, an EBA engineering study concluded that the storage capacity of the impact area was approximately 27,799 acre feet. The previous investigations have also demonstrated that the annual groundwater recharge to the valley to be approximately 756 million gallons. The proposed groundwater withdrawals associated with the project are approximately 353.86 acre feet per year. Now, it's important to note on this diagram over here, the green line, which obviously this little thing in the corner prevents you from seeing the full picture, but you get an idea of it. And the green line outlines the impact area, and what the cumulative impact area is defined below. And that's, as defined for the study, it corresponds to the change in a specific area resulting from the incremental impact of the project when added to other existing groundwater uses in the area. As depicted on that picture, you also see purple lines and red lines. The purple lines indicate property that's owned by Brassfield Estate Winery, and the red lines indicate property that's owned by us, Sowers HVR and Aviana LLC. Of the cumulative impact area, Brassfield Estates Winery and Sowers HVR, Aviana LLC own 56% of the cumulative impact area and are using less than 5% of the available water within that area. Catherine also had alluded to the fact about the different aquifers. As this picture illustrates here, there's two different aquifers in the High Valley Basin. There's the Quantiterium alluvium and the Holocene volcanics. The shallow domestic wells that many people have mentioned, you know, they've had issues with going dry, are drawing from the shallower well. On the contrary, our wells are much deeper, and they are drawing from the Holocene volcanics aquifer. I think this picture does a good job of illustrating the differences here. As you can see, many of the neighboring wells would be in what would be that letter A there, where they're drawing from that shallow aquifer, whereas we're drawing from what is letter C there, and that's the much deeper aquifer. We realize, obviously, water is an issue. We've done our best to maximize the efficiency and minimize the amount of water we've used. As such, we've implemented the use of drip lines that specifically target water to the root zone of the plants. That way we, as I say, maximize the efficiency of the water and minimize the use. In addition, we've installed tensiometers, which measure the amount of water in the soil. That way we can ensure that we're not overwatering, that we're not using more water than we need to. And additionally, we've used plastic mulch. The plastic mulch will allow for water to be retained as much as humanly possible. And it's just another measure that, that it's in place to make sure that we're as efficient and as responsible with our water use as possible. Cultural resources were brought up. When we first embarked on this project, we hired the foremost expert in Lake County archaeological history, Dr. John Parker. Dr. Parker was the first archaeologist or archaeological historian to actively engage tribes in his analysis of the project impacts. Kind of as Catherine alluded to, the artifacts are outside of the impact area where we plan to do any work. Furthermore, they are in wooded areas with trees. We've gone ahead and made sure that during our planning phase of the project that we're not removing any trees. We purposely planned our project so that we're not removing any trees, affecting any of those areas, or disturbing any of the artifacts. Odor control. Obviously, cannabis, much like many other forms of agriculture, has some odor associated with it. Whether it's dairy farmers and the manure smell, or other farmers and sulfur and different pesticides and chemicals that they may be spraying. We've done our best to mitigate the odors, and by committing to planting odor-reducing plants around the perimeter of the property. We've also, exceeded the mandated setback distance from the nearest residence by over 3 times the mandated setback in Article 27. And lastly, we've strategically chosen to plant the least pungent strains that we grow in the areas in close proximity to the neighbors. Dust, that was obviously an issue and that we heard from everyone last hearing, and we took that to heart even before the hearing, and we've implemented many procedures to remedy that issue. Those include the compaction of soil, the use of the water truck, and an organic dust suppression treatment. I'd also like to point out that one of the issues with dust this year was that because we were only issued the early activation permit and it can only begin to work such late in the season, the cover crop, had less moisture in it, the soil had less moisture in it than it ordinarily would have if we would have started that work earlier in the season. The biological survey, per all the requirements in Article 27 and applicable regulations, we had a biological assessment. As Catherine also alluded to, there was 43 special status plants that were known for the region, and 39 had no potential to occur within the property. As articulated here, the remaining 4 were further assessed, and although they were determined to have marginal habitat present because of the previous disturbance on the project site, they were determined not to be viable. As it relates to wildlife, the same applies. The habitat was deemed to be lacking on the proposed project site, specifically also within the impact areas. They did identify the potential for 2 special status birds, or bats I should say, including the Townsend's big-eared bat and the pallet bat. Subsequently, we adhered to the recommendations of the biologist, and we had pre-construction surveys, and that was here. And as you can see with the blue circle there, that was where one of the raptor nests was identified. We subsequently adhered to that 500-foot buffer zone, did not disturb the land, did not do any disking, plowing, or any alteration to that area until it was deemed that the nest had fledged, the birds had fledged and the nest had failed. At that time, we did begin to do the requisite activities. That concludes the presentation that I have. I'd also like to say that in addition to Kimley Horn, whose name is on all the documents and has worked with the project, we've also worked extensively with Pivot Partnerships, another environmental consulting firm. And they've worked in tandem, hand in hand, since the beginning of the project. We contracted with Kimley Horn back in September of 2020. Kimley Horn prepared the application materials, and Pivot Partnerships subsequently reviewed everything. We made numerous changes to the project throughout the process before ever submitting it to the county to remedy any potential environmental impacts and to make sure that the project was as least impactful as possible. And with that being said, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
As far as
Not at this time.
Not at this time. I think Are we in public comment still?
We'll go, if there's no questions, we'll open up public
I would
comment.
also like to say we do have, the hydrologist is on the Zoom call, and he has a prepared statement as well as our environmental consultant as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have someone who is going to approach the podium for public comment. Please
Okay, we'll open public comment. Please state your first and last name.
Good afternoon, or good
Morning.
morning, Commissioners. Getting ahead of myself. My name is Brad Stoneman. I work for Kimley Horn, and my team and I prepared the documentation, CEQA documentation, some of the text studies, and would like to make a statement. All right. So clearly, what I have prepared. Sure. I have prepared statements. A lot of it would be redundant to what Catherine and Tom already presented, so I will try to keep it brief. But I just want to touch on a couple things, particularly as it pertains to the CEQA and CEQA process, and then just on a point-by-point basis. So in regards to traffic, the Commission requested that there was a VMT analysis. Typically, the VMT analysis, and this is based on the Office of Planning and Research, requires projects to be evaluated for vehicle miles traveled. Sorry, acronyms. If for a project greater than 110 trips, obviously the project was under that, but we went ahead and looked at that. To do that, we contacted PSI seminars to develop an understanding of the baseline conditions. Again, I don't want to get too dry, but baseline is set forth by CEQA Guidelines 15125. It's just very important to understand that the baseline is the physical environmental conditions in the vicinity of the project as they exist at the time the notice of preparation is published, or if no notice of preparation is published, at the time environmental analysis is commenced. So using that, the existing trips from SCI seminars was an appropriate comparison for the proposed project. So that's why we looked at the trips that were generated on an average day by SCI seminars, comparing that to the project. And I think it's also important to note that the project would have been under the 110 trip threshold regardless. Then also on the, just wanted to touch on the grading violations. As Tom noted, this was, there were, at the time the biological resources survey was done, and then Cdfw did come out. There was the original lake and stream bed alteration agreement that was certified or adopted and certified by Cdfw. The project conformed to that, minus obviously Tom had discussed the violations of the encroachment into the higher quality drainages, but none of those drainages were entered into. It was just within the buffer zone, and that's being remedied. As Tom noted, they worked with, after they had done the clearing, Cdfw came back out and realized and saw the undulations, and then they wanted some additional protections for the higher quality drainages, and the applicant worked with Cdfw. I was out there with their, I think Cdfw's second site visit. Tom and Sowers hired an additional engineering company to come out and engineer with the Cdfw hydrologists that around those drainages. Sorry.
Good morning, Brad. We've exceeded the 3-minute time limit. If you could go ahead and conclude your comment, unless the commissioners would like you to continue.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to conclude that within the CEQA process, we use the environmental checklist Everybody's familiar with that, the long list with the questions, with the resource areas. Under each resource area, there's the questions, no impact, less than significant with mitigation, or potentially significant, based on all of the evidence and the subsequent information, the hydrology study, the VMT, additional explanations about the biology and cultural. The findings of the less than significant with mitigation is the appropriate finding for this project and this document. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers wish to speak? Please be sure to state your first and last name.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the difficult jobs that you do. My name is Maria Kahn, and I am a property owner and resident in High Valley in the Clear Lake Oaks, California. I'm here today on behalf of all High Valley residents, our wildlife, and fellow Lake County residents seeking protection from large cannabis organizations being placed in our communities. I would first like to say that I am not against the legal cultivation of marijuana. I support the medical marijuana community and recognize the benefits of using natural products instead of synthetic pharmaceuticals. I am opposed to Use Permit 2110, and I oppose all out-of-county organizations that come to our county to use our land and water resources for their financial gain with the promise of large tax revenues for our county. The money they are paying us is a minute fraction of the windfall they will enjoy at the expense of residences and our resources. These organizations demonstrate that they will say one thing and do another if left unchecked. Sowers HVR has already been fined for violations that should have been red flags for their permit, their early activation permit, to be revoked, but they paid a fine and were allowed to continue working with no county oversight. This project has veered from the plan several times, and somehow that's okay. Drilling wells on the property and laying irrigation pipe constitutes construction and violates the terms of the early activation permit. If the Planning Commission is following the law, the use permits must be denied and the early activation permit revoked. The residents in my valley are reading, watching, and responding to their plan, and the county needs to listen. We have identified the ways in which this project is detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed mitigation of our concerns is inadequate. For example, the applicant cannot reduce to less than significant the nuisance of odor from an 80-acre outdoor grow because they cannot control the wind, which will surely blow the smell beyond their 1,000-foot setback. Also, they cannot reduce to less than significant our safety and security concerns because all of their proposed measures protect their operation, property, and employees. There are no protections outlined for residents and their properties. They cannot reduce to less than significant our water concerns, considering we are in exceptional drought and residents' wells are drying up. Mine included. Mine is dry. As a county, we cannot justify allowing our water resources to be given away to a discretionary agricultural product while at the same time putting our hand out for federal disaster aid and asking all of our residents to conserve every drop. Approving this use permit is negligent, reckless, and short-sighted. We demand this project be halted until a full environmental impact report can be made. This revised hydrology report that they're presenting should not be accepted by the Planning Commission. It contains recycled reports and is padded with outdated, irrelevant, and duplicate documents to make it appear they have done further studies. It is therefore an inaccurate representation designed to mislead and confuse the Commission and public. We demand current geological and hydrological reports from the state or county for High Valley and the surrounding area, not from the applicant. Their reports are based on missing data, they're insufficient and contradictory. The Hydrogeological Technical Memorandum dated February 5th, 2021 states, the Holocene Volcanics Aquifer is considered to be a productive aquifer and is used as a source of irrigation water in and around the region, end quote. Conversely, the report dated July 14, 2021, under the same heading, states that the Holocene Volcanics Aquifer is non-water bearing. Kimley Horn's July 14, 2021 report appears to draw information from the California's Groundwater Update 2020, Bulletin 118, March 2021, published by the California Natural Resources Agency, Department of Water Resources. After searching through that document for anything related to High Valley, Lake County, Clear Lake, Quaternary alluvium, and Holocene volcanic aquifers, or information about the aggregate thickness of aquifers in the vicinity, which aren't identified, we demand they produce a copy of their findings to support their statement of reference.
Good morning, Mariah. Mariah, thank you. Sorry, we've exceeded our 3 minutes.
Yes,
so
thank
if
you. I
can
have
conclude
just
your
one more
comments.
bit
Thank you so much.
I will wrap up after they exceeded theirs. The applicant's revised report references the groundwater availability study prepared by EBA Engineering, issued September 2016 on behalf of Brassfield Winery. A copy of this study is not included. Residents demand to see this document as it is being used to provide estimates for the groundwater availability. Additionally, this report is outdated considering we have been in a drought for several years since the report was issued. The Commission should require additional data regarding the capacity, amount, and source of water for Brassfield's holding pond, considering Sow's HVR is now connected to that source of water by 2 large pipes crossing Brassfield's property, passing under High Valley Road and onto Sow's HVR property, and connected to their irrigation pumps. Residents question the legality of this arrangement, and it is not mentioned in their application or plan. Sowers HVR clearly cannot find water on their property if they're hooked up to Brassfield. Therefore, this project is not viable in High Valley and must be abandoned. Please deny use permit 2110, revoke the early activation permit, remove this project from High Valley, and require the applicant to repair the damage done to the property and waterways. This is a failed business venture, and the applicant needs to write it off and walk away. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Good morning. Please be sure to state your first and last name.
Don Van Pelt, adjacent neighbor to the Sowers HVR. What the Valley residents have witnessed for the last 2 months, yes, they have made some mitigation measures, but this morning coming here, my house was completely dusted out, and they did have a water truck and that, but their mitigation measures are far too little and far too late. They've really exhausted everything they could do. And the number of employees, they mentioned 15. It's my understanding in that type of operation, there's going to be 2 to 3 to 4 per acre. Well, you got 80 acres on a daily basis. That far exceeds 15 employees. And I think we need a lot more transparency from that organization to be satisfied as neighbors up there in the valley, because the water is an issue, all the pollution of dust and everything. And for me, odor is going to be a huge issue. I don't know what strain smells more than others. I don't think they really do. What I'm asking is, they currently have some acreage planted right now. Stop it, allow them to grow that, and the county look at it and see. And the planning commission, the planning department, make some determination on what's going to be acceptable odors to adjacent neighbors. You know, there's no mitigation measures for the odor, and that really needs to be addressed. And then their hydrology reports need to be addressed. I submitted a letter, and hopefully all of you got it. It was late last night. So I hope you all read it before you make a determination of voting for this, because there's a lot more that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you may. Just be sure to state your first and last name into the microphone, please.
My name is Doug Logan. I live in High Valley. This is regarding the use permit 2110. I live in High Valley near the pot farm seeking permit number 2110. I have owned property in High Valley since Brassfield Vineyards and Winery was a cattle ranch. The pot farm was a quiet little company offering motivational seminars. I acknowledge that High Valley is zoned agricultural. I acknowledge that as rude as the field preparation vis-a-vis the horrendous amount of dust generated was, it is part of the agricultural process. I'm asking the Planning Commission acknowledge the Sheriff Brian Martin has declared a local drought emergency, later ratified by the Board of Supervisors. I'm asking that the Planning Commission acknowledge the water districts around the lake are suffering from the drought. Cal Water's Lucerne operation is encouraging their customers to conserve water as much as possible. That's good advice anytime. The Connaughton County Water District has already implemented water conservation plans. It goes on and on. I'm asking the Planning Commission to acknowledge that residential wells are going dry, mine included. Kudos to Ellie for the pot farm's efforts to help his neighbors supplying water to people who have had to replace their wells with a water storage tank system. In view of water shortages around the lake and the related efforts to conserve water, how can the Planning Commission approve a new project that will consume 2.2 plus million gallons per week? Apparently, the poor quality water taken from the deeper aquifer returns around 60% of the water back to the deeper aquifer. How does that low quality water affect the more potable, shallower aquifer as it returns to the deeper aquifer? Good question. I have no issues with farmers using as much water as they need when we are not in the middle of the worst drought in 50 years, with no end in sight. It is not as if the pot farm is growing penicillin or COVID vaccines. I would also ask that the Planning Commission review Article 51, Section 51.4A 1 through 6 of the Lake County zoning ordinance. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Karen Mantelli. I am a resident of Lake County, and I have some concerns about this project, and so I'm just going to ask a few questions.
Just a moment.
Sorry. Oh. Okay. Thank you.
That's better.
Karen Mantelli is my name. Use permit 2110 seems to have had concerns before, and my concerns after hearing some of the people speak are exasperated. The water supply is definitely an issue. I feel that there needs to be a lot more transparency with that. I wanted to ask about, there's 6 wells I heard, and are there new wells being drilled on top of that number of wells? And the fact that, so that's one of my concerns. And they talked about traffic. In the report here, it says that it'd be 40 to 80 ADT. I believe that was mentioned by the gentleman. This is on a 2-lane road. They discussed and said Highway Patrol had stats up until 2019. The stats said no accidents. Well, there was no project. This project is going to have a lot of people coming up and down the 2-lane road. And I feel for the people who would be living near there to have to navigate that on a daily basis. Go back to the well, you know, is the deeper well, is that existing or is that new that they're going to be using? I also have concerns about the Cdfw. Did the company cause those violations? And if they did, are they scrambling to get themselves back into good standing with Cdfw? I also wanted to know who's the environmental scientist who signed off on this project that they were looking at. I feel there needs to be more transparency here. I don't feel that, I also looked at the tribal consultation. The initial study says that it's to be completed after the AB 52 is completed. When looking at conditions on other projects, there seems to be many conditions that are placed upon tribal oversight. With 80 acres, this initial study didn't seem to appear that there was any tribal consultations. It's hard for me to believe that there was 11 tribes that may have been contacted, but nobody had any issue with these 80 acres being developed and no oversight. If I look in the last one that was looked at, I think first there was mitigation measures that prior to any ground disturbing activities, there was a number of requirements that had to be a qualified archaeologist had to be on site and that the native tribes had to be involved. So I'm very concerned that that wasn't discussed and highlighted as well. I just fully believe that this project has a lot of concerns that need to be addressed. Hearing that 2.2 million gallons per week was going to be used for water supply should make you stop and think. 2.2 million gallons a week when individuals in the area have to live and they have to supply their own daily drinking needs. So I fully would believe that this UP 2110 should not be approved, and anything should be revoked as far as any early activation until a full EIR is presented to the commission, to the county, highlighting all of these concerns that the public and myself addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Richard Jones. I'm a resident of Lake County, been here for about 25 years, I think. And I actually have a house in the Oaks, so I don't live there, but I have a house in the Oaks. My neighbors, well, not my neighbors, but my friends here are some of the people that wells have gone dry. They've lived there for, I don't know how long, generations, I think, in one case. And my concern would be the water, the usage of the water and how much water. And the numbers, you know, it's all the presentation didn't mention anything about gallons. See, people can relate to gallons. It was acre feet, and that doesn't make much sense. It's like, you know, bringing a number out and then suddenly saying, but the real truth is this, and this is how much water is actually being used. I don't know how, and I'm not against marijuana, I'm not against the wine industry, but I don't know how much water is used per acre, producing that crop versus a different kind of crop. Neither of the crops are essential. It's not food. It's discretionary. That's been mentioned before. And, you know, the other thing was that the resource that's available to them, I think they said less than 5%, I think was the amount they said. Well, just because there's less than 5% being used, or what's supposedly available, and I would go and refer to the news where farmers, well, they're farmers, they're cattle farmers in Arizona now talking about selling their cattle because they don't have water there. In the West, I mean, it's not like it's a local situation. We do have a drought nationally, or certainly on the West Coast, and it's not essential. The numbers that are given maybe from old reports of how much is available, they've quoted they won't use more than 5%. That's like the oil industry saying, well, you know, it's more expensive to drill here. We'll go up to where the resources are in Alaska or whatever because it's all freely available. I don't know how much of that really is available down there. 5% might not be 5%. Maybe the aquifer only has 50% because of drought conditions, and therefore it jumps to 10 or more percent. And how much is that water usage, millions of gallons, related to, say, the population of the Oaks? I mean, does the population of the Oaks drinking water actually, or, you know, normal household water, how many households does that relate to? Is it 1,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Does it exceed most of the population of the usage for the Oaks? I mean, put stuff into perspective. And that's all I'm saying, is you need to stand back. And they have made, I mean, again, going back historically, people have made mistakes. There's the Eland colony down there, which has the Superfund site. When I found that out, that there was a Superfund site from prior mining, and it's contaminated the lake, and I don't know how many years, 15, 20 years, they've been trying to clean it up. I mean, the effects long-term right now, it may be that it's a great project, but the timing isn't right because we've got a drought situation, and who knows when and if it's going to get any better. But you're still looking at pulling out millions of gallons per week.
Good morning, Richard. I'm sorry, we've exceeded the 3-minute time allotted. If you could conclude your comments. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is John Mocknick, and I'm a Lake County resident currently residing in Clear Lake. I'm also affiliated with Lake County Grown, which has 2 approved projects here in Lake County. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for their time on these important matters. First, I'd like to state that I fully support this project. The Board of Supervisors and this Planning Commission spent endless hours developing a well-thought-out plan for the county's commercial cannabis exclusionary zone map to address many concerns regarding impacts to the neighboring areas. It is hard to find a property within this map that meets the needed criteria for a viable project, and this applicant seems to have found a quality area that should work well for their project and keep the rest of the community minimally affected by the demands of the running operation. This is the best location within the map that's already been thoughtfully developed by the CDD and the Board of Supervisors. No site is perfect for everyone, but Mr. Armstrong sure seemed to have legitimate mitigation measures outlined to minimize these projects and the neighbors' concerns. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Richard Durham. I'm a cultivator also, and I've been attending these hearings for eons, even prior to Article 27. This is probably the most comprehensive study I've seen on a project done. It seems to be totally, I mean, I've never seen anything this well. I know personally the applicant. They're great people as far as what they're bringing to the county. We need to brand Lake County cannabis. Small farms like mine, collectively, will never be able to do that. We don't have the funds and the outreach to be able to brand Lake County cannabis. So a project like this is important for the county and for all the local cannabis growers. They'll lift the name, and so all the smaller cultivators are also going to profit from it. So I suggest that we pass the project, let them move forward, and help Lake County forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, give me just a moment. It's not my mic. Sorry. It's not me. Anybody else like to speak? And you can speak. I just want to make sure everybody gets their first round to go around. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mary Draper, and I've been working with Sowers for a while, not as a paid consultant or a paid person, but just trying to help him do everything that he needs to do to be transparent. I have been in Lake County for a long time, and I love Lake County, and I think this brings something really good. Something that Supervisor Smith, when this was first written, wanted. This was kind of like his desire and what he saw for the county. I think Ellie has been more than transparent. He's invited his neighbors in to talk with them and share with them and see what their issues are, try to address them. Some of their wells went dry before he ever started using water. And he went and cleaned out their well, fixed her pump, and brought her water. He's been bringing water to 2 of the neighbors that are here today. I think he's done a great job. On top of that, I've been before the commission 3 times for my own projects, and I have never seen one like this. The arrows that have came at this project from other growers and people outside are unreal. They've had to jump through more hoops than anything I've ever seen. Constant calls, giving this rumor, giving that rumor, this person's doing that person's doing that. Last night I had a call that another grower hired a person to look into the thing, make lots of notes, and do everything that they could to try to derail the project. I was told that Angie Dodd, who is a consultant who testified last time, was also hired by one of her people. When I called our Jacob Zoom and Associates last Thursday, Jacob Zoom and Associates, the head of the biological department, told me that she had received a call from Angie Dodd that day who said that she was with Canacraft. And it's kind of funny that anybody would put Jacob Zoom down as she is hiring them as a consultant. And whoever she said she was working on behalf of, I don't trust that. I just know that Angie Dodd is the one that called. They've had to be more transparent. They've tried to be more transparent, wanted everybody to know everything, wanted to make sure this project went through, that they were a good player, they did everything right. When they had the violation, there was no way for them to know that there was a ground crop there. They didn't know, the CDFA didn't know, nobody knew when they came out and looked at the project until after they disked. They weren't trying to hide anything. They've tried to be good from the very start. I ask that you follow staff's direction in passing this today. It's been a lot of fun. It's a great project. I love it, but it's really been difficult with all the other players that appear to be against it. And I'd appreciate your passing today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers like to speak? Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Elia Goel, one of the owners of this project. I want to thank you for being here and listening to us today. After our meeting, our commission meeting last 2 weeks, we took very seriously all the concerns that our neighbor had and our commissioners as well. We tried to address them one by one by going through the tapes of the meeting and meeting with most of the residents. I want to make sure that there are more than 5 residents, families that are supporting the project. They don't want to step forward because they're scared from ramification. I actually got an email today in the morning regarding this. I can read it to you. It was forwarded to Catherine as well. One of the neighbors brought me champagne and a letter in my own mother tongue. I was very happy after that. And I want to say that we're doing everything that we can to sit and work on any problem that we have with our neighbors within our community. I would like to ask you today, when you're considering your vote, that this area was designated by the county for cannabis use, for cannabis cultivation. It's surrounded by hundreds of acres of existing vineyards and developing more vineyards. And it's away from the public eye, most of it, other than 14 households, I think, other than us in Brassfield. And this is all I got. So we would really like to grow together with the county and be a good member of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? I'll let you approach the podium since no one else wants to speak. Wait. I'm sorry, I forgot something where I can speak on. Okay, go ahead and approach the podium and then we'll wrap this up and then we'll go into the Zoom room.
I just have some questions that I'd just like to bring it out.
And just make sure that you're directing the questions to
Yes.
the commission.
Yes,
Thank you.
the PSI seminars, they were talking about that. I wasn't sure if there was
I'm
any
sorry.
numbers.
Say your name one more time.
Karen Mantelli.
Thank you.
Resident of Lake County. They had mentioned, I know that PSI seminars had taken place, so I wanted to know if that was compared to how many times a year did they have their seminars versus the daily traffic that was going to be generated as a result of this. Within the initial study, it stated that there was going to be vegetation removal, but then I heard from the applicant that they said there was going to be no vegetation removal, so that was contradicting of what I saw within the initial study. It showed it. Wanted to also ask if there had been a wetland survey prepared for the project. And I saw that there's an existing septic system that is going to be used. Is that enough for 65 people? Are they going to have additional, it sounds like porta potties, but it said they were going to use the existing septic system. So that seemed, maybe just wanted to concern whether that was enough for the people there. And also the planner, also Catherine mentioned that there was changed COAs, conditions of approval, and I just wanted to maybe if there was a highlight about what was actually changed as a result from the July 8th meeting. And then lastly, I guess for the commission is, what in the eyes of the commission would make this such a great project? And as it has been stated many times by the people who support it, that this would be a great project. And I guess I would like to hear from the commission if whatever their decision is what makes this such a great project for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have the applicant that wants to speak again. So should I keep not repeating the same people who have already spoke and then open it up to the Zoom room, and then as they can come back and respond? How would you like to handle that?
If we can get everybody an opportunity to speak first, if we can go to the Zoom room prior to anybody else coming back for a second time, that would be preferable. If we do have any member of the applicant's team, please identify yourself. I know we have the hydrologist on Zoom, which was mentioned, and if they all have information or comments that they want to present, I would prefer that all be done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll go ahead and let you handle the Zoom room, and then we can come back to chambers.
Thank you. Jake, do we have any hands in the Zoom room?
Yes, I currently have 2 hands raised in the Zoom room. The first hand I have raised is from Angie Dodd. Angie, I've given you permission to speak. It looks like you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. My name is Angie Dodd. I just wanted to speak briefly. I was not planning on speaking today, but my name was brought up by one of the speakers. I just want to clarify, I am not hired to address this project. I've never been hired to address this project. I'm not sure where Ms. Draper came up with that information. Not sure why my name is being brought up specifically. I just wanted to point that out. I have discussed it with others in the county, as many have, but I am not a hired consultant on this project or for anyone associated with this project, and I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Next hand, please, Jake.
Yes, the next hand we have up is from Jason Shealy. All right, looks like you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Jason Sheasley with Kimley Horn and Associates.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by saying that anybody engaged in any type of agricultural land use knows the importance of water, especially irrigation water, and that the viability of any agricultural land use is contingent upon that water. And that is through our interactions with Sowers and their staff. They certainly take that into heart, and they are aware that the viability of their project hinges on them being good stewards of the groundwater resource. And so with that, I'd like to speak a little bit more about the investigation that was undertaken for this application. We reviewed some limited information that is available regarding the localized geology and hydrogeology for the High Valley region. What we've ultimately determined that one of the most comprehensive reports with respect to more recent water uses within that area is the water availability report prepared by EBA Engineering on behalf of Brassfield Estates. In our initial review and our initial investigation, we noted that there's an estimate of roughly 900 acre-feet of storage available in the High Valley groundwater basin. Upon further review of the published geologic literature, it is determined, or we've determined that that estimate was limited just to the Quaternary alluvium deposits. However, when you factor in the underlying Holocene volcanic deposits, the storage capacity of the aquifer increases to 28,000, from 27 to 28,000 acre-feet. So that initial estimate was an underestimate, and it was really only focused on the Quaternary alluvium. And that's where most of the domestic water supply wells are located, are within that shallower aquifer. And I might add that that aquifer is also the most susceptible to seasonal changes and seasonal fluctuations. The published literature states that in the spring and summertime, groundwater fluctuations are as much as 5 to 10 feet within the alluvium deposits of the High Valley groundwater basin. When we conducted our investigation and looking at the information provided by EBA Engineering, it was critical to evaluate the amount of recharge available to the groundwater basin versus the amount of water used by the applicant. What we've ultimately determined that little over 2.6% of the groundwater available to the area through impact would be through recharge would be used as part of this proposed water use. That does not take into consideration the fact that this is primarily an irrigation project and that a majority of the water that is being used is actually being reapplied to the land surface and allowed to infiltrate and recharge the aquifer. Historically, there have been 6 irrigation wells associated with the High Valley Ranch property. Cumulatively,
Jason, I'm sorry, we have surpassed the 3-minute allotted timeline. If you could conclude your comments, thank you.
Sure. I just want to say that historically, the cumulative yield of the wells at the High Valley Ranch far exceed the amount of water that's being proposed for this particular project. And lastly, I'd like to indicate that when you look at the cumulative area of impact, both Brassfield Estates and the High Valley Ranch project take up approximately 56% of that area of cumulative impact. A majority of the remaining area is not necessarily undevelopable, but the amount of density associated with that is limited because we're talking about steep-sided slopes within the valley.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other hands in the Zoom room, Jake?
Yes, we have, at this point, we have 3 more hands. The next hand I have up is from Paul Bernaccio. I've given you permission to speak. It looks like you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Hello, my name is Paul Bernaccio, and I just wanted to make a quick comment. I am actually a neighbor of Ellie's on another farm that he has, and these guys have been great neighbors to me. They've helped me when I've had situations over at my farm, whether it be equipment or just feedback. And, you know, I truly believe that a project this size should go to a certain type of person who's going to be a steward of the land and the water resources, and somebody who's going to help elevate Lake County as a whole. And I've met, you know, I've met a lot of cultivators, and I truly believe that these people are good people, and that they will do whatever it takes to satisfy the concerns of all the neighbors. So I ask that you please support the project. Thank you.
Okay, the next hand I have up was from Damian Ramirez. Damian, I've given you permission to speak. All right, looks like you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Good morning, Damian Ramirez, Lake County grown. I just wanted to state that I'm in full support of this project. I feel Mr. Armstrong's detailed presentation earlier really thoroughly addressed many of the concerns that were brought up by the Planning Commission and all the neighbors at the previous hearing held on the 8th. In my humble opinion, all of the supporting docs that I've reviewed them all, they're as comprehensive as I've ever seen for any cannabis cultivation project that's gone in front of this commission. I feel operators such as Ellie and Tom, they're the exact type of people who we want to be running a large-scale operation in this county and representing it. And as Richard alluded to, it really will do good for the entire community for the cannabis community. And from day one, it seems clear that these guys have put in the good faith efforts to respect all the concerns of the community, and their detailed reports they really show that. As always, just thank you all for your time, to the commissioners and everyone else involved. Your work and efforts on these projects and all others definitely don't go unnoticed. So thank you all.
All right, and the last hand I have up at this moment is Jennifer K. Smith. Jennifer, I've allowed you permission to speak. It looks like you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Jennifer Smith.
Thank you.
If not here, then where? This project meets the land use criteria as mandated by the County Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Applicants met all the requirements of the state to obtain their state license. As allowed by the county, the applicant went above and beyond the duty of most applicants, and paid outside consultants rather than add to the workload of county staff. In anticipation of demands, the applicant commissioned studies that haven't been required of previous applicants and has been completely transparent and provided all of this information to the county on multiple times. I can appreciate the concerns of the neighbors. Change is difficult. But what we're witnessing is a culture war between generations. This isn't about the facts. This is about emotions. We're witnessing people wanting to control the land use rights of others. We're watching misinformation be spread widely. Even today, as valid and correct information was presented, people are not hearing it. They're not absorbing it. And we need to look at the project as it stands. This project has been cleared by the state, by the Cdfw, by Cdfa, and the county wants to approve this project. This project brings jobs. With jobs, we have an increase in the economic impact of our county. I don't see many other industries bringing this level of positive impact, economic impact to our county. The owner and operator is a class act. This is a well-organized, clean, and efficient farming practices. This is farming. This isn't backyard gardening. This is an agricultural crop and should be treated in the same light as all other agricultural crops. I support this project. Our industry should support this project, and our community should support this project. These are the type of projects we need to elevate Lake County, and I hope that this commission will see fit to approve this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that the last hand in the Zoom room, Jake?
Yes, that was the last hand in the Zoom room.
Okay, we'll return back to the chambers, and anybody who's wishing to speak, please again come up and state your first and last name.
I do have someone who's going to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Commission. Brad Stoneman again. I just wanted to respond to a couple of the questions that were raised in regards to the wetlands. They're within the areas of impact. There are no wetlands mapped. There are no wetlands taken. Again, Cdfw has been out there. I don't want to beat that dead horse, but the new Lake and Stream Bed Alteration Agreement is issued, and the wetlands, no impacts to wetlands. In regards to the vehicle miles traveled and SCI seminars, I contacted them directly, and from 2016 to 2020, I obtained their attendance records. So basically, between students, staff, employees, and vendors, I think it averaged out to about 58 average daily trips per day over the year. Compared to the proposed project, again, this was greater than what the proposed project would generate. And again, going back to I discussed baseline briefly, comparatively speaking, there's fewer trips under the proposed project. I think Tom covered that pretty well as well. Regarding the septic system, there's a number of septic and leach fields on site. As part of the record, I believe Environmental Health provided a list of all the existing septic tanks. The project site also was originally going to be sized for a hotel or larger accommodations, so the septic system is adequate to serve the project. Lastly, I just wanted to touch back, how much time do I have? On the CEQA process. So again, I touched on the initial study. So the initial study goes through, there's the 20 different resource areas. Under each question, less than significant, less than significant, no impact, less than significant with mitigation, or potentially significant impact. We went through question by question. Typically, we go off of the Appendix G, checklist. The county has modified it slightly, so we used that. Again, everything was either less than significant, no impact, or less than significant with mitigation. So this leads us to the mitigated negative declaration. Revisions in the project had been made, and there's no substantial evidence in light of the whole record before the public agency. This is including our initial reports, the subsequent reports that we've provided to Commission regarding the VMT, the hydrology report, and whatnot. So based on State Secret Statute 21082.2, significant effects on the environment, determining that an environmental impact report would be required. Those subheadings under that statute are not met. Therefore, the mitigated negative declaration is again the appropriate document for this. Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers wish to speak before we close public comment and bring it back to the commission?
Hi, my name's Maria Kahn. I live in High Valley. I find it unfathomable that they did not do an environmental impact report with this project. If you've seen the project from an aerial view, you know it totally consumes our valley. There is no way that this could not have impacted the environment in many ways. It's heartbreaking. The residents in the valley are grieving for the way they've torn up the land, disrespected Native American artifacts, potentially, migrating birds, nesting baby fawns. Anything that was in the path of those dozers was pulverized to a fine dirt. It's killing us. Our beautiful, quiet valley has been turned into a huge organization, and I'm not saying that these people aren't nice. They are good people. They're nice. They did fill my tank with water, so I thank them for that. But it just doesn't belong in our valley, right next to another huge water-using project, Brassfield Winery. These two organizations are going to drain our aquifer, possibly to the point of collapse. And at that point, it's game over. And this county, if it keeps moving forward with weed and wine, which I like both of them, I use both. We're looking at sucking up all the water for these two agricultural products that do not feed people, do not provide water. We will end up sitting around drinking wine, getting high until we die of thirst. And then the county will be over. And the land will be ruined, and they'll pick up, move away, leave an environmental disaster behind, and stop paying those glorious taxes that they are promising us. And I want the commission to please think very carefully about the future of this county, because you have so many residents who are stewards of the land and who care deeply, and I believe that these agricultural people as well. But this little valley cannot support these two big players. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do believe the applicant's going to come up and probably sum it all up for us, and we'll bring it back to the commission. Just be sure
I have a question for council real quick. Nicole,
Yes.
if the applicants coming up or any member of their team, are they still required to have to stay within the 3 minutes, or are they allowed to speak outside of the 3 minutes?
I would leave that to the commission. Typically, applicants, as the party requesting a decision from your commission, they're often given extra time, not just to comment, but to be questioned, like staff would be by the commission as far as their project, questions your commission may have, concerns your commission may have, to see if the applicant may provide evidence to you that would inform your decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to speak? So yes, the applicant will come up and speak. Just be sure to state your first and last name for us. Thank you.
Elia Goel. I would like to address Maria's concern regarding the collapsing of the valley. We're doing things out of good faith, not out of fear. If we live our life through fear, nothing will change and nothing will happen. Change is here. It's coming. As long as we support each other as neighbors and there is a problem between us that we can solve, that should be the right measurement between the residents. I didn't want to bring it up, but there's a letter I would like to read from the closest neighbor in the corner, the one that we closed the gate next to because they were complaining about the noise. Leslie and Greg Small. My name is Leslie Small. I live at 12,000 High Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks. I was excited to have new neighbors developing the property next to mine. Being situated right next to them has given me the front row to see the progress. Initially, it was a bumpy start. As anyone who has been around Consideration knows that there's some noise disruption. Luckily, the owner, Eli Hagoel, has been extremely amicable in both communication and willingness to assuage our concerns. Instead of using the gate next to our driveway, he has rerouted all deliveries and vehicles to the gate further down, almost a mile away. In addition, he has kept open communication about when any noise disruption will occur going forward, which is greatly appreciated. Eli has been noting nothing but polite, considerate, and courteous neighbor who I believe is working hard to develop the property and provide valuable jobs to those working with him. Sincerely, Leslie. In addition to this, we decided as a company to reduce the canopy space and put sunflowers on the east side next to our neighbors, which is about 40 acres that will separate the sunflowers to the rest of the project for this season, which will help tremendously with the smell. And like I had a conversation with you, Don, you won't need to explain your grandchild what is next to you. You can show them sunflowers.
I apologize. Try to direct your comments to.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to turn my mic off. I just want you to direct your comments to the commission.
Sorry about that.
Anyone. It's okay.
I'm done. Thank you.
Can I make one quick statement?
Public comment is still open, so if you'd like to speak, you're welcome to approach the podium.
Again, Doug Logan, High Valley.
One more time in the mic for me, Doug. Thank you.
Doug Logan, High Valley. I'd like to just say in passing or in closing that I've seen a lot of people come up commenting on the fact that Tom and Ellie are nice guys, nice people. Nobody's questioning that. I found them to be extremely amicable. I would like to tamp down some of the animosity that's growing before my eyes by saying that these are indeed good people. The issue is the water. Thank you.
Hi, Mary Draper again. I'm coming up right now because I think that it's important for future meetings, for what's going on, that consultants that are paid by other growers should say that when they come up here. I'm not sure why a consultant would take so much time and go through so much work as Karen Mantle. What is her reasoning for doing it? So I think when somebody comes up against a project like that, if they're a consultant, you need to know it, and you need to know why. Because there has been a lot of arrows and a lot of stuff going on in the community, and I think it's a conflict of interest, actually. Thank you.
Sure. I do believe we have a couple more comments before we'll close public comment.
Yes, Commissioners, Karen Mantelli, I just wanted to address. I'm just a member of the public. I read the documents that were presented and available, and I am familiar with planning. So my comments and my questions are relative to my own personal feelings and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. One more round. Anybody else like that would wish to speak? Okay. I don't see anybody approaching the podium, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll do one last check in the Zoom room. Any hands in the Zoom room, Jake?
Yes, we currently have one hand raised in the Zoom room. Hand I have raised is from Sarah. Sarah, I've given you permission to speak. Looks like you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Sarah Foudy.
All right, great, thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank the commissioners. I would like to thank the applicants, but also I would like to thank the neighbors. I had the same opinion as everybody else on having to come a long way, not against the projects, but against cannabis cultivation as a whole. And my longtime friend, Ellie, had to explain to me, and I have been his devil's advocate for a long time, to consult, a long time ago, when he decided to switch careers and actually dedicate his life and his lifetime savings into this. And this was not about the money, and this is not about the money. No matter how sweet the money might seem to a lot, but I am under pledge and I'm under oath, and money is definitely not a motivation for this man. I heard people mentioning that he is out of the county, or people out of the county, or labeling the project as a corporation. I believe this would have had a different attitude if you were dealing with a corporation. I've attended a lot of hearings in many counties, and I would like to congratulate all of you for using your rights to express your concerns, and using a very, not all the time, but most of the time, it was very amicable on how the concerns were addressed and proposed the right corrective and preventive actions. This is the longest conflict in humankind since we discovered agriculture, and having crops, learning how to grow next to each other and use the resources while maintaining property owner rights, which are constitutional rights to all of you. And I'm glad a lot of you mentioned today, which is a great change of attitude compared to last time, to use facts as opposed to emotions, and to respect what is our expertise and interpretation of many of these documents. The fact that we do not understand all of them, and the fact that this great country and this great county has the right systems in place to review these documents. I am not a hydrologist. I am an educated, more or less person, but the fact that I do not understand a fact does not make it lack transparency. And I would like to congratulate all of you, and I believe Lake County will give an example for how introducing cannabis cultivation should be done in many other counties, and they did choose Lake County, not only taking into consideration their business needs, but also a long time ago, we used to fly over Lake County, and Ellie wanted to be a resident of this way before he entered cultivation. Thank you.
Okay, with no more hands in the Zoom room, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for any questions or action.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Before you get anywhere near voting, I just wanted to reiterate, since we're short a commissioner, reiterate the rules relating to tie votes. Should your vote end in a 2-2 vote, that is effectively a no vote. So it would be a denial because it is a no action vote. If you are even concerned about reaching a 2-2 vote, and you would not want to outright deny the application, you do have the option of continuing the item if you feel that there are things that may be done in relation to the application and the analysis of the project that may reach a 3 vote or greater. So you have the option of continuing. However, you do not have the option of continuing if you move forward with a vote and it results in a 2-2 vote. You can't go back. If that makes sense.
It does. That's very helpful. Thanks, Nicole.
So who wants to start with their questions as far as the commission goes? Do you have any?
Anybody want to? Generally, it's If it's, if it's in one commissioner's district, maybe start with that person.
So I'll go ahead and, as I said earlier, I did visit the site on last week, Thursday, on the 15th, and the site visit was very helpful. The questions I have mostly are related to the hydrology, and I believe the applicant's hydrologist was on, so I'd like to direct questions to him if possible. And those questions are in regard to groundwater recharge. I did like the little slide showing the different, the multiple groundwater aquifers. And so my questions will be in regards to the recharge of all of those aquifers. And how does that recharge impact the shallowest aquifer? And if the consultant's not available, anybody from the applicant's team.
I believe the consultant was attending via Zoom. I do have Jason Sheasley raising his hand. I did give him permission to speak. Can you confirm?
That's correct. This is Jason Sheasley.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So to answer your question, as far as the recharge is concerned, when the applicant intends to use drip irrigation, and that irrigation method is one of the most water conscious and conservative methods for irrigation, as opposed to overhead sprinklers or flood irrigation. So this allows the water to be applied directly to the land surface and concentrated in the root areas. And as that water is applied directly to the land surface, it slowly infiltrates into the subsurface and ultimately recharges the first aquifer that it comes in contact with, which is the alluvial aquifer. So in reality, the benefit of withdrawing water out of the deeper aquifer, the actual benefit will be to apply that water to and recharge the shallow aquifer. Ultimately, over enough period of time, because there is some hydraulic connection between the underlying bedrock aquifer and the overlying alluvial aquifer, that water that is applied to the land surface will ultimately recharge the deeper aquifer at some point. It's just a matter of how fast it takes that water to infiltrate into the subsurface and then ultimately into the bedrock aquifer.
And then secondly, how is this aquifer in your mind connected to conditions?
I missed that last part. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. So in terms of the aquifer, there's a lot of testimony and concern with the current drought, and so I'd like to know from your perspective and your expertise, is the drought and this aquifer going to have an impact to the rest of the water or the water in the valley?
Well, I think it goes without saying that the drought does have an impact for sure. We do know that at least historically in the alluvial aquifer, during normal seasonal fluctuations, we can anticipate between 5 to 10 feet of water level change during the typical spring and summertime in the alluvial aquifer. We're in extraordinary circumstances with this drought for sure. The fact that the water is being used for irrigation as opposed to being used for bottled water, or is being trucked off site for other uses, or even is being used for livestock growing and cultivation. It's being reapplied to the land surface, and almost, I won't say it's a 100% closed loop, but the water's coming right out of the ground and going right back into the ground. As the drought conditions will presumably change, I think if we look back 50 years, probably the most comparable drought to the conditions that we're seeing right now occurred in 1976. It took roughly 4 to 5 years for groundwater levels to come back to pre-1976 conditions, and that's normal under drought conditions, depending on the severity of the drought. One thing is for sure is that generally the drought conditions come and go. We'll have periods of low water and drought conditions, and then just as that, we will also have periods of high water and drought conditions. So it's not a steady system that never changes. We have to anticipate those changes, and as we're looking at drought conditions, adjust the irrigation use and look at potentially reducing crops sizes, or look at other methods for irrigating the land, whether and not using directly groundwater. And that could be using reclaimed water as a potential source to help offset some of the groundwater withdrawals.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one other question that I guess would not be directed to your hydrologist, but upon the site visit, exiting the site and coming down the road, there was a truck that was coming up the hill that we did have to come to a stop. And so I guess in terms of if going forward to cause less impacts to traffic, would a pilot cart support the transportation of any trucks that are bigger than a half ton or any semis that are coming in? Would that reduce impacts to concerns with the road? And so the stop was less than a minute to wait for the truck to pass around one of the first turns at the bottom of the hill. So I guess that's a concern that I would like to see addressed. So if the applicant can speak to the potential of deliveries, semi-trucks coming up the hill, what we anticipate on the future use of the road for deliveries or any type of construction materials that have to be delivered to the site.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
did you want the applicant to approach the podium and answer your question?
If we can wait till if they can take a note of that question, and then we can get to everybody else's questions. I'm not sure if anybody else has specific questions for the hydrologist, but we can come back to that.
Okay, so we'll just get all of our questions addressed and then have him respond?
Yes, that'd be perfect.
Thank you.
And so that'll be it for my questions at this time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Everardo Chavez, Commissioner for District 2. So pretty much, as every meeting goes, I take notes of everything, any public comments, whatever the applicants have to say. I write everything down and I try to see where the patterns are. Forgot who came up earlier to discuss that, these are nice people. They are taking care of their neighbors and they're doing everything they can to make sure that that everything is done as right as possible. And the concerns that obviously we are in a drought, it's about water. So my questions are with a video that surfaced on YouTube about, and it was spoken about it today as well, about using Brassfield's water. So if the well that is being used for irrigation, what is the use of using Brassfield's water? Where is that water going to? And pretty much the use of having those pipes going through the properties from one side to the project. So that is one of my questions, what that water is being used for, if the well is supposed to sustain such operation. Yeah, pretty much that was, I clumped it all together saying, to discuss that. If the applicant could later answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Hess, did you want to say your comments, or do you want me to go?
Thanks so much. Yeah, they're related to traffic and water as well. And it's noted that Brassfield is making a, what was it, $10 per case contribution to
I believe it was 10 cents.
maintenance. Yeah, 10 cents. Has the applicant made a specific offer to the county, or has, in the course of his meetings with the neighborhood, has he discussed, just in the spirit of goodwill, contributing to those efforts financially to maintain the road and to do something collectively with the county and the local neighborhood? That would be my question. And then a comment.
Did you freeze?
We are sensitive to what we... I don't know. When did you lose me?
I think you should just start over.
Everything?
No, just when you said, I have a comment, and then it was a huge dramatic pause.
So did you hear me talk about the offer to community about...
Yes, absolutely.
Road maintenance?
Yes.
Good. Right. No, in general, we're as sensitive as any county officials can be to water. Hear about it every time we consider a major applicant like this. And we are excruciatingly aware that we are out. But we are a policy-making body. We cannot just wave a wand and say we will not consider any more applications as long as we are in drought. We're obligated to take every application on as a case-by-case basis and evaluate them individually. And that's just the commission has to operate. So I can imagine doing a lot more hearings with a lot of concerns about water. We cannot just make a blanket comment about no more applications as long as there's vote. And I would ask that, again, receive more guidance from the Board of Supervisors with respect to how to operate in this extreme drought. It would be helpful, and I know that we've made that request before. And so that's the extent of my questions and comments. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. I'll echo, I would like to hear about the water and what someone had brought up about diverting water from Brassfield to the project. I was trying to find it in your original project description. Is there going to be trimming on site? Because I know that I'm just trying to get a feel for how the 60 employees, it seems a little small to me with the scope of the project. Also, I feel that the benefit of having an early activation gives us enough time to explore these things that the public brings up. We don't know what the traffic increase is going to be like. We don't know what the end result of the water usage is going to be. Early activation has been a good thing to where those things can happen and we can address those situations as they come. That being said, we don't really have the true accurate numbers to say how many trips are going to be taken, how many employees, whether it's influx, whether it increases by 20 or 100. That's my concern. That's one of my main concerns. I kind of lost my train of thought, but we can let you guys respond to that, and then we can bring it back to the commission.
I also have a couple more questions, but I'll let him answer these first, and then...
I think you should answer, or you should get your questions out and then let him respond at once. That's just my opinion.
Okay. So another question was the well that is being used, how deep that well is? How?
Over 400, Elia Goel, over 450 feet, I think.
Okay.
The well, I think, is more than 450 feet.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the number, but it's for sure more than 350.
Okay. And my other question was, with the grading that was done prior, how far from the closest cultural resource site was the disking done? Or in other words, did the property owner know about the location of the cultural site before the grading was done?
Yes, so we knew exactly with Dr. Parker. We went around when he was on his work, and it's a small area in a wooded area that is, I don't know how many feet, but it's near the cultivation area, but it was not even it was not disked. There is a 20-foot road that blocked between the wooden area to the fenced area.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, can you confirm how many wells are currently producing for you, and then how many proposed you have coming up?
Right. We have 3 wells, and we have 2 more wells online, I think, coming in.
So you have 3 that are producing currently?
Correct.
Thank you.
So I will start with Commissioner Hess regarding your questions of us contributing to the road conditions. We already obligated to fix that hairpin turn. I've been for the last 2 weeks trying to reach Jim Hale from the Road and Works. We keep playing phone tags, but we're obligating to add a 15-foot culvert to that turn, asphalt it. We already had a contractor that is bidding this, and we would like to fix that if the county will allow us. Regarding the water from Brassfield, the property, as you know, is almost 1,700 acres. We're leasing another 400 acres on an adjacent parcel, which that reservoir is on currently. We're running cattle for one of our neighbors and planning to bring more. And we also, like I previously said, we're going to plant over 40 acres of sunflowers instead of cannabis in the east side of the property. That will pretty much be the block between the neighbors and ourselves. That water could be used greatly for fire suppression in the middle of the valley, and can be used for backup as well. So that's that.
So just to be clear, the water that is being pulled from there is to water your sunflowers and other surrounding.
So
not for your operation, correct?
So the way the system works, the water comes from Brassfield to our filtration system, and from there we can navigate it to the gardens. So
to your operation.
Correct.
Cannabis.
Agriculture.
Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to state your name, please.
Tom Armstrong. I just wanted to address a couple points as it relates to the hydrology and the drought. I think obviously it's an important point to note that obviously we're in drought. Equally as important to note is that EBA engineering study that was done in 2016, which was just during an equally as intense drought, or nearly as equally intense, and actually was after a few years which there was a very intense drought. Therefore, those numbers that they articulated in that report took into account that drought that we were just going through. So I think that's an important point to note, that it was very similar conditions in 2016 that we're in right now, and those numbers were from that report, and thus in very, very similar conditions. So that drought was effectively taken into account. I'm not sure if there was any other issues that we didn't address. Was there one about the school or the distance from the school that you had, or?
That was previous, but it was answered.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything else that we didn't answer.
I just had a question about a pilot car escorting more than half-ton vehicles to ease traffic concerns, if that was something you would consider in terms of any 16-wheel vehicles or semis coming up the hill. Would that be a consideration you guys would be open to entertaining?
Yes, it's definitely something we'd entertain and do. I mean, we're more than willing to do whatever we can to make the conditions better for the residents, for the road itself. And I would also point out that we're not the only people that drive larger vehicles up and down that road. There's some neighbors that have tractor trailers parked on their properties. So I think that's an important point to note. We're not the only people that are driving large vehicles on that road. But we're more than willing to do whatever we can, and more than willing to do that.
Okay, I do see a hand from Scott DeLeon in the Zoom room. Jake, can you?
I'm here. Thank you very much, Chairman Brown, and good morning, Planning Commissioners. Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director. I just wanted to jump on quickly and address some of the issues related to the road. I can confirm that they have been in contact with our road superintendent, Jim Hale, to discuss some improvements to the road. So I can confirm that they have done that. There's been some discussion about Brassfield and the per case payment that they make for mitigations to impacts to the road. We considered something like that for this project. However, we really struggled, frankly, with the unit of measure on how to apply a fee for mitigation. And so what the thought was is because the Public Works Department and roads specifically are a component of the cannabis tax, and we can request the board give a portion of those those taxes from cannabis. We plan on asking for a percentage out of the cannabis tax that this operation, if approved, will be making. So in lieu of a specific fee, our plan is to take funds from the cannabis tax for us to use for mitigations to the road. I hope that addresses any concerns related to fairness or anything of that nature with respect to what Brassfield's doing and how we intend to mitigate any impacts. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Scott. I don't have any questions for you.
Just to kind of go back to the water being deferred, was that part of your, when did that become part of your project? Like, was it identified anywhere that you would be using another water source, or just the ones that were listed on your project description in your initial
right.
study?
So just to clarify, when we're talking about CEQA project, like in theory, because we're not using it for cannabis, it's not in the scope. Like we're not using, so it was not considered in the initial study. However, I would point out that it's in the cumulative impact area and it's within the same aquifer. So if it is, that's something to point out. But as I say, as it relates to CEQA and analysis of the project, we're not using it for that. Therefore, there was no need in the CEQA analysis to evaluate that.
That's good. I just, since it was brought up from the public, I feel like it's good to kind of alleviate anybody's questions or gray areas or the what ifs or all of that. So the more transparent and black and white we can be, I feel like the public and the commission in general.
I would also point out too that that's temporary. That pipe, as evident by the video, is above ground. That was purposely done. Not only is it above ground, but it's a rented pipe. It's not even pipe we purchased. It was only there, as Ellie mentioned, we have 2 wells that are incoming. Next season, we'll use those for any of that East Garden. As I say, we're doing sunflowers there this year, the one that's in the closest proximity to the neighbors. If we decide to then revert that back to cannabis, we have those other wells there. And as I say, it's a temporary pipe. Everything was done. It's a ministerial permit. We pulled the encroachment permit, did everything per county ordinances.
Thank you.
Can I ask Director De Leon to clarify what an encroachment permit is for the Planning Commission?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I heard my name, but I missed the question.
So just a clarification for everybody what an encroachment permit is and what it isn't.
Okay, well, I presume you're talking about the trenching permit that the county issued for a horizontal directional bore underneath High Valley Road for the purpose of extending water lines between the adjacent properties. The encroachment permit is a permit that allows folks to do work within the county maintained road right-of-way. A trenching permit in this case for a private utility is not unusual. We do issue those. There are specific requirements. For example, for a private utility, we typically require a casing be installed, and then the water line or sewer line sometimes needs to be inside that casing. That way, if there's a problem with the line, they can dig it up at either end of the casing, and they don't have to go back into the road to do anything with the line. They can access it from either end. That's basically the permit that was issued for this project. Again, it was a directional bore for the placement of a casing underneath High Valley Road. The permit allows for the installation of the utility. It doesn't approve the use of it or anything of that nature. It's simply limited to the work being allowed within the road right-of-way. So I hope that helps.
Thanks, Scott.
I don't know if there's any other questions or...
Public comments closed.
It was not announced that it was closed. I have two environmental...
Mr. Chair.
There are two new environmental concerns that I have. It was announced.
Public comment is closed.
Thank you.
That was not the chair, that was John.
Yes, we did close public comment. Do we have any other questions from the commission?
I apologize. Did you tell me that you guys do plan on doing trimming up at the facility?
Oh, you did ask about that.
Yeah.
Yes, and as I stated, we have ample housing on there. As Brad, our consultant, stated, that site, and as it relates to even the septic, was previously designed for a proposed hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, when they would routinely have 120 plus people there for their seminars, they stayed on site within the housing that we have on site. We have numerous ample housing that's permitted and adequate for people to stay there as well.
Okay.
I have no further questions.
Okay, do any other commissioners have any further questions?
No more questions, just kind of like a comment. So looking at how deep that well is going, obviously to the lower aquifer, I feel more, and with the hydrologist here, feel a little bit better about the whole water issue and how water is going directly into the ground, filtering back into that top aquifer. We are in a serious drought, so it's not like an easy choice to make, but I do feel a little bit better with the new information that we got today about the aquifers and the water use. So.
And I'll echo that a little bit. I did appreciate on the slide how you showed the plastic mulch and being on drip system and all of that. That was nice to see.
And if I may comment, I'm the last standing commissioner who was part of writing the cannabis ordinance, and I've literally been present from the very first vote on the very first application. And I've seen lots of applications, large and small. And this is truly, in terms of my review of things, one of the most comprehensive and carefully crafted applications that I've seen. And I'm further buoyed by the additional information that we have received today. And personally, this commissioner would be prepared to move forward.
Okay, I have no further questions or comments, and am ready to entertain some action.
The way I see it, my colleagues, is we have the option now to not read emotions and continue this if we think that by a 2-2 vote, we would have the unintended consequence of terminating the project today. But if we do choose to continue, we would have to move onto that path now and not consider the motions at all. And it's hard to get a read on exactly where commissioners stand, and I certainly understand that. But I would regret if a 2-2 vote today resulted in the cancellation of this project. It's not the applicant's fault that we are currently missing our 5th commissioner.
I will also say, John, that I'm in agreement with your comments. At this time, after viewing the site, taking the site visit, a lot of my concerns are not valid anymore based on the site visit, the information that's current. The big concern with water, the hydrologist addressed that well. So at this time, am prepared to support this application. And if we do entertain a vote, we risk the chance of, that tie. And so I would leave it at that with where I'm at.
All of my questions have been answered. I do appreciate the applicant and staff and the commission taking the time to issue them their rescheduling of today, and I feel that they definitely wanted to address every situation that was brought up. It doesn't go unnoted. So that's where I stand.
I'm prepared to move forward with the application. I feel like compared to other projects that we've seen, they've put in a lot of work and continue to go far and beyond making sure that neighbors' concerns and public's concerns are addressed and are willing to do something about it if there are issues. So they're not just, not ignoring people and not addressing their concerns. So they really truly seems like they do care about this project and about the people around the project. So that's why I think I'm ready to move forward with the project. If we go to a vote.
This is in the chairman's district? Is that correct?
Yes, District 3.
That is correct.
Well, in that case, based on what I've heard, I would be prepared to move forward with a motion. And I would move that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit UP 21-10 applied for by Sowers HVR Inc. on a property located at 11650 High Valley Road, 4919 New Long Valley Road, 4963 New Long Valley Road, 10788 High Valley Road, 10750 High Valley Road, 10945 High Valley Road, 4491 New Long Valley Road in Clear Lake Oaks, California 95423, further described as APNs 006-004-06, 006-004-07, -25-04, no, 006-004-25, 006-002-04, 006-009-36, 006-004-24, 006-002-09 will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore a mitigated negative declaration should be approved with the findings set forth in the staff report dated July 22, 2021, and as amended today.
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner House?
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Motion so carried.
I move further that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit UP 21-10 prepared for the project proposed by Sowers HVR Inc. on a property located at 11650 High Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks, California, further described as APN ends 006-004-06, 006-004-07, 006-004-25, 006-002-04, 006-009-36, 006-004-24, 006-002-09 does meet the requirements of Section 51.4 of the Lake County zoning ordinance, and the major use permit be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated July 22nd, 2021, and is amended today.
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Haas?
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Motion so carried.
Okay, I'd like to note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there's a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on and before the 7th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. Okay, do we have any on-time staff updates? Office news?
No, according to Dave.
Okay, well, with no news or no on-time staff updates, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.